What exactly is UX writing and content design? Join me today as I take you through the basics of this discipline, what it entails, what UX writers do every day, how much they make, and if you're interested, how you can become one. Now, a lot of people who are entering this field may have heard this term, UX writer, and they might think, it sounds kind of interesting. I know what UX is. That stands for user experience. I'm really interested in writing. Maybe you're from a different background like marketing or copywriting or advertising, and you think, I'd really love to be involved more in the software design side rather than what I'm doing. And UX writing is a great entry point for that. It's actually really interesting to see what types of people end up becoming UX writers. I know I used to be a journalist. I know advertising copywriters who are now UX writers. I know people who have worked in publishing and fiction and all sorts of people. So if you come from one of those backgrounds and you think that working in software might be fun and you're a writer or have writing background, then this could be the profession for you. But let's go through the basics and I'll take you through what a UX writer is, how it works, and what it means to be one. So UX writing refers to the practice of writing content for any type of digital product. So that includes desktop software, mobile apps, anything in between. Some websites, not all websites, but some websites. And UX writing is the act of creating the content for those experiences. So if you open an app or a piece of software, you'll see words everywhere, from the menus you use to the notifications you get on your phone to all the settings that you're looking at. Someone had to actually sit there and come up with all of the words for that. Now you might think, well, where's the creativity in that? If you open your app and you see the settings screen, you might think, well, I don't really know why we need a writer for that. But think about all the other apps you use, things like Duolingo or Discord or Slack if you're in a corporate environment, or Microsoft Teams. All the different messages you get that are telling you how the software works, what it's doing, giving you notifications. Someone had to actually come up with the words for that, and importantly, had to figure out how to give you that information in the first place. And if you think about it, it's actually really important how you get information when using software, right? Like if you get an error message, you don't want to be told there's been an error and not be told what it is or how to fix it. If you're in an airport and you get a notification that your flight has been canceled, you don't want that to be the end of the story. You want some more information. What do I do now? Can I book a new flight? Am I rebooked on the next one? All of these principles go into making a software experience a really good one. And that's why UX writing is so important. It's really important that when we're creating software, we're giving users a great experience, and it means making sure that they get information that's clear, that's logical, and that at any point in the software, they know what to do next. And it also adds personality to a program. So if you're using Duolingo, for instance, I think that's probably one of the best uses of personality in tech today. All of the notifications and the different messages you get reinforce that Duolingo is a brand that really knows itself, and that keeps you coming back. Whereas if you're just a basic app with sort of no personality whatsoever, it's less attractive. Now, you've probably heard me use UX writer and content designer in two different ways. You've heard me use both of those terms. So you might be asking, what's the difference between UX writer and content designer? And the truth is that there really isn't that much of a difference. Right now, the industry tends to prefer the term content designer. So as they became seen as a much more influential part of design overall, they were given the title content design to sort of more accurately reflect what they do every day. Now, that being said, UX writer is still a term that's used at a lot of different companies. Apple still calls its people UX writers. Google still uses the term UX writer, but a lot of other companies use the term content designer. So if you hear the word content designer, think UX writer. If you hear UX writing, think content designer. There are some nuances which we're not going to get into in this video. This is just an introduction. But for now, that's what you should focus on. They're essentially the same thing. So what does a UX writer do? What do they do every day? Well, as we already said, they sit in a design team in a software company. Maybe they're working on a desktop app, or maybe they're working on a mobile app, and they write all the text that you see in the application. But of course, that's not all they do. There are a range of different tasks they have to complete in order to make sure that people get the best experience. So that can include creating and maintaining a style guide. So a style guide, much like you'd see a style guide in an academic institution or at a newspaper, it's a list of rules about how the application talks. So do you use a particular type of case, like title case? Do you use semicolons in a particular way? Do you avoid using certain words? So these are things that UX writers all look after. Participating in UX research, so talking to users, figuring out what language they use and what words they use. Because after all, we want to make sure that applications reflect the way its users talk, so they conduct and take part in that research, often lead it. They work in product teams, so they're working with developers and designers to make sure that the visuals and the words complement each other and they work well together. They also make sure that their applications are accessible, so they look after accessibility initiatives, localization for different countries, and so on. They're also increasingly working in conversational interfaces. So they're working with things like language models to make sure that any type of chatbot related product is working properly and giving a good user experience. And of course, all the serious stuff like contributing to making sure the product doesn't break any legal or ethical rules. So there's actually a lot to do as a UX writer or content designer. It's definitely not an easy job. All the major tech companies like Apple and Netflix and Amazon, they all have teams of content designers and UX writers. And not just those, a huge number of companies across a range of different industries have them. So this is a big field, and it's definitely one that has grown a lot over the past, say, 10 or 15 years or so. Certainly it's come into its own. And that's why a lot of these companies pay content designers really well. They pay them really well. We did a survey a few years ago at UX Content Collective, and we asked a whole bunch of people, what do you earn? And UX writers and content designers told us that around the world, the median range is about $80,000 to $100,000 US dollars. Now that's around the world. If you're living in the United States, for instance, that can be much higher. We recorded one salary above US $400,000. So there are many, many people earning, well into the six figures, above $200,000 at the high level. So this is a lucrative industry, and it can pay very well once you get into a really good position. So who does a UX writer work with day to day? There are a range of different people. So they work with people like product managers who are running a particular product unit in a company, and they're determining how to best speak to users and figuring out what the business objectives are. They're working in a UX team, so they're working with designers, and they're figuring out not only how should things look, but how should the visuals and the content complement each other and work together to give the user a good experience. They're working with developers to understand, well, what can we do or what can't we do to give users a good content experience? And they're also working with people like marketing and brand and legal to figure out how can we give a really good experience as well. So if you enjoy working in a role where you're speaking to a whole bunch of different people across a range of different disciplines, then this is definitely not a boring job and can give you a lot of excitement, a lot of problems to solve, but a lot of excitement as well. So the cool thing about being a UX writer or a content designer is that it's a full career path. You don't just start at an entry level. You can actually increase your experience level all the way up to even a director or a VP of content design, depending on the company. So you can enter as an entry-level UX writer, make your way up to intermediate or senior, and then if you want to, go all the way up to the director level. There are more content designers now entering general leadership as well in design or product. So if you want to experience other types of leadership in software, there are paths to get there. So this could be a great entryway, especially if you want to know more about building a product or getting involved in software, but you aren't a developer or you don't necessarily have a technical background. This is a great way to get into the industry. So one question that gets asked a lot is, what about AI? If artificial intelligence is writing everything, what job do UX writers or content designers have? To answer that, I'd look at companies like OpenAI and Anthropic. So both of those companies create GPT and Claude, which are obviously the two of the leading language models out there today. And those companies have hired content designers to work on their products. So I just point that out. If the AI companies themselves are hiring content designers, then surely that means that there's some sort of value in the job that they can see. And that's been the case. There are loads of companies now that have hired content designers, and they specifically request AI skills and experience with language models. So these jobs are not disappearing because AI models are now in play. In fact, content designers play a key role in not only training those models in those companies or implementing them in features, but also writing UI text to educate users on how to use these products and how to use these features. So AI can do a lot of things, but it still needs context and instruction. And to do that, it needs really, really dedicated and smart people. But if the AI companies themselves are hiring content designers, I'd say it's a pretty good sign the job's going to stay around for a while. So I guess the only question left to answer is, should you be a UX writer or a content designer? And the answer to that really depends on a few things. So I would say, if you have an interest in writing, if you are interested in the software design experience, if you are interested in talking to different people about what they enjoy, what they like, and how they use different products, if you're interested in building software, and if you like the idea of working with a bunch of different people in a team, then UX writing or content design may be a career that you should pursue. Even if you don't have that much experience, or if you're coming from, let's say, an English major background or a communications background, this is a fantastic career path for someone who has that talent, but maybe necessarily doesn't have the coding background or doesn't want to work in coding or the technical side of building software. This is a creative side that you can really sink your teeth into. On the other hand, I would say that if you don't necessarily have a love for writing or language or words, and if you're not really interested in working in a team to solve big problems with a lot of constraints, this job is probably not going to be the one for you. There are a lot of hurdles to jump, and there are a lot of constraints you have to work within, and you do often have to work with large teams under a lot of constraints to get things done. But if that sounds exciting to you, then UX writing and content design is a full career path that you should pursue, and I would definitely recommend it. Now, look, my card's on the table. I am the CEO of the UX Content Collective, and we offer certifications in UX writing and content design training. So, of course, I'm going to say that, yes, you should be a UX writer. But if you are interested, I would encourage you to check us out at uxcontent.com. We do have certificates in UX writing, content design, and a range of other related disciplines. So if you are interested, feel free to check it out. You can get 20% off using the code that you see on screen or in the video description. So if you are interested, go and check it out. If you're just a little bit curious, there are heaps of free resources over there that you can look at as well. So you can read a little bit more about what it means to be a UX writer and what people do every day. And we've put some of those links in the video description as well. Thanks for watching our video on whether you should be a UX writer. Hopefully now you have a good indication about whether this is a career that you might enjoy. If it is, head on over to uxcontent.com, check out a few of the other resources we have available. And as always, feel free to reach out if you have any questions.